everybody understands the process and that we're available to assist you as best as we can. If you have questions, the questions will be after the presentation. You will not be able to unmute yourself during the presentation, but after the presentation, you will. You can also write a question in the chat, and we have here Ms. Moore and Ms. Hall that will be helping. My name is Maria Amparo Lanese, and I'm overseeing the GT, Advanced Academics and Dual Enrollment for the district under the direction of Mr. Mario Rosales, our director. It's just a very small department of 4, but we are trying our very, very best to help everybody. And we are here to assist you and to guide you through all our programs. But today we are going to concentrate only on the process of being eligible and being referred to the GT program. So I will continue. Today, our agenda, we're going to have a little bit of the reviewing of the GT characteristics of potentially gifted and talented students. Que es el día de hoy. Muchas gracias. Dispensen por si no saben el inglés. Va a ser bilingüe esta sesión. Y el día de hoy vamos a hablar en cómo los alumnos pueden participar en el programa GT, pero el proceso en cómo pueden ser parte de este programa. So, en nuestra agenda tenemos cómo revisar las características de GT de los estudiantes potencialmente dotados y talentosos. We're going to go over forms. Vamos a repasar las formas. We will review GT identification process. Revisaremos el proceso de identificación de GT para el distrito de United for the UISD district and have important dates, fechas importantes. So we're going to start off with the characteristics that we see in our children, in the students, in the community. So vamos a continuar con las características que puede tener un estudiante GT que uno ve en la casa, en la comunidad, en la escuela. So we start off with energy. Those students have a lot of energy. They're risk takers. They're adventurous. They're very popular with their peers. They're leader of many social activities and more mental and physical stamina than his or her peers. So estamos hablando de que un alumno puede tener la energía y ese puede ser una característica. Es arriesgado, aventurero, goza de popularidad entre sus compañeros, líder de muchas de las actividades escolares y sociales y tiene más energía mental y física que sus compañeros. So we're going to be talking about several characteristics that you might be seeing in your child that you think your child can be part of the GT program. And one of them that we concentrate on, of course, is on the energy. So vamos a hablar sobre las características. Acabamos de repasar sobre la energía de un alumno. Esta es la primera característica que podemos ver y ustedes se pueden hacer esta pregunta. Nosotros vemos, como padres, vemos esto en nuestros hijos e hijas. So as a parent, do you see this in your child? This is one characteristic that can be possible identification of GT. Then we go to the next characteristic, which is enthusiasm. Continuamos con la característica de entusiasmo. So in enthusiasm, we have keen sense of humor, assertiveness, capacity to generate many ideas, questioning right or wrong, or worries about social issues, eagerness to participate in some activities that peers do not like, for example, chess, conversations with adults, and they like taking on the role of cheerleader, which means they encourage others to join activities. So sometimes you're with your children or you take them to maybe a party or in the classroom, and are you seeing this characteristic of enthusiasm? Do you see that the student is the one who, you know, is the funny one, wants to make his peers laugh, is very assertive about something, and they're very sure about themselves, they're very confident, they can, you know, come up with different ideas. So, you know, look at these characteristics under enthusiasm and think, you know, does my child have this? Estamos hablando sobre las características y la segunda característica es entusiasmo. Entonces, el alumno puede ser agudo, tiene un sentido de humor muy agudo, asertividad, es muy acertado, capacidad para generar muchas ideas, cuestionamiento del bien y el mal o preocupación por temas sociales, entusiasmo por participar en actividades que no les gustan a los niños de su edad, por ejemplo, ajedrez o conversaciones con adultos, y es el porrista, es el que anima a otros para participar en diversas actividades. So, ya sea en un ambiente escolar o en un ambiente social, usted va a ver que su hijo o hija tiene esta característica y no tiene que ser todo esto que se ve aquí, pero puede ser alguno de estos. Y el sentido de humor es el alumno que en el salón siempre está diciendo sus chistes, está animando a los alumnos. Es muy acertado, esa persona, ese alumno está seguro de sí mismo y habla con mucha, que él dice, va a ser de esta manera, o tiene la capacidad de generar muchas ideas. Es ese alumno o hijo e hija que está en la casa o en la escuela y tiene muchas ideas y empieza el por qué mamá o el por qué papá. Entonces está generando continuamente diferentes ideas. So esta es otra característica. So this is another characteristic, which is enthusiasm. Then we go to the next one. This one's problem solving and reasoning ability. So continuamos con capacidad para resolver problemas y razonar. So we go into identifying the reason something happened, natural curiosity to find out why and how, seeing the big picture easily, noticing how things are alike or different, coming up with a large number of ideas and possible solutions, trying to understand complicated material by separating it into parts, ability to develop logical and common sense answers. So here you see that child that's thinking outside the box. They want to identify, they want to know the why and the how. They like to see the big picture very easily and sometimes just come up with an answer automatically. And they're the ones that can be viewing something and they're coming up with different ideas. They're generating ideas. They're coming up with so many different answers to maybe just one problem. Eso estamos hablando sobre la capacidad de poder resolver los problemas y de razonar. Y primeramente está identificar las razones por las que sucedió algo. Demuestra curiosidad natural por saber el por qué y cómo de las cosas. Obtiene fácilmente una visión general. Nota cómo las cosas se parecen o son diferentes. Piensa en muchas ideas y posibles soluciones. Trata de entender material complicado, separándolo en partes y tiene la capacidad para formular respuestas lógicas de sentido común. Entonces, como usted puede ver, su hijo o hija tiene un razonamiento muy adelantado, está pensando sobre diferentes ideas, tiene diferentes soluciones, a lo mejor para alguna pregunta o algún problema, y tiene una visión muy diferente que los otros alumnos. Y tratan de entender el material. O sea, puede ser algo muy complicado y ustedes les pueden preguntar al alumno, dicen, es tan fácil, o sea, ¿por qué se lo están complicando? Entonces, es el alumno que tiene esa capacidad y se le viene muy fácilmente. So this one is a problem solving, of course, and the reasoning. And it can be sometimes where the student, we can make it difficult for ourselves, but is the student that comes naturally and has answers to everything and is able to communicate with others and just say like, why are you making it such a big deal? Or why are you complicating things? This is just so easy. So it comes very natural to them. So this is another GT characteristics that we can see in our children. The next one is sensitivity. So la siguiente es sensibilidad. So it's unusual degree of self-awareness, greater awareness of her own or his own and other people's feelings, non-conforming persona. They have no fear of being different and being judgmental of other people, places, and things. So these are the students that it's okay for them to be different. They don't mind. It's no big deal for them. And they're very self-aware and they're very confident of themselves. They know what they are capable of doing. And they're very judgmental sometimes because to them it's just so easy or comes so natural as opposed to other students. So estamos hablando sobre la sensibilidad. Es un nivel inusual en autoconocimiento, un mayor conocimiento de los sentimientos de los demás personas y de los propios, una personalidad no convencional que no teme ser diferente y es crítico de otras personas, lugares y cosas. Entonces usted ve a su hijo e hija y ellos a veces no les importa el estar solo o el ser un poco diferente, pero tienen un mayor conocimiento y el conocimiento de ellos mismos. Ellos están seguros de sí mismos, de lo que ellos saben y lo que ellos pueden resolver. Tienen una personalidad muy diferente y aparte ellos son bien, critican mucho y ellos no tienen ningún problema al criticar cómo están las cosas, cómo están las personas, cómo se encuentra la sociedad o algunos temas. Entonces, esta es la sensibilidad y es otra característica que puede tener un alumno que sea superdotado. So here we continue on to another characteristic, and that one is originality. So la siguiente característica es originalidad. And originality, the students love playing with words, making up riddles, using ordinary terms in unusual ways, creating pictures and stories that may seem different from those created by his or her grade level peers, and drawing pictures that include a lot of detail or tell unusual stories. So these are the students that maybe when the teacher is explaining something or you're at home and y'all are talking about something, this student is thinking about something else and they're being original about it, that they come up with an idea and it's very different than their own peers and they're thinking at a different level. So their peers might come up with something a little bit more simple and theirs is more elaborate and they like to explain things and they like to go over and beyond. And sometimes they'll draw those pictures. And when they're drawing those pictures, there's so much detail in them because to them, it's very important to identify those specific things about what they're trying to talk about or what they're trying to convey. So estamos hablando sobre originalidad. Estos son los alumnos que les gusta jugar con palabras y hacer adivinanzas, usar términos ordinarios de fórmulas inusuales, crear ilustraciones e historias que pueden ser diferentes de las que crearon sus compañeros en su nivel escolar. Y también les gusta dibujar retratos que incluyen muchos detalles o cuentan historias inusuales. Entonces, ustedes van a ver que su hijo e hija, ya sea en la casa o en la escuela, son esos alumnos que les gusta jugar con palabras, con vocabulario, con algo, con algunos términos que a lo mejor para nosotros no sea muy usual y ellos siempre tienen que buscar un poquito más y saber algo. Y en las ilustraciones que ellos hacen son muy detallistas. Ellos van a ilustrar algo o van a escribir algo y tiene mucha explicación muy detalladamente porque ellos les gusta que cuando ellos van a presentar algo o van a escribir algo, va a estar detalladamente. Entonces, van a contar algo un poco diferente al alumno que está al nivel de ellos. So, of course, this is a different characteristic that we're talking about. Then we go to another characteristic. We go interest in adult issues. So seguimos con otra característica que tiene que ver con el interés en temas de adultos. So the interest in adult issues is interest in adult problems such as the environment, politics, religion, or ethnic issues. They like to have older friends. They spend time listening to adults talking, and they show interest in current events. So these are the children who like to be around adults, like to question adults, like to hear stories. And they're very interested in the news. You know, it's not that typical child who maybe is going to be playing with regular video games or is going to be watching a sitcom on TV, but it's going to be those students who are going to go into the news and they're going to look for a news channel and they want to know what's happening around the world and they want to know why. And they want to find a solution to that. Or they'll say, you know, when I grow up, this is what I want to concentrate. I want to be able to help these people. But they spend a lot of time listening to adults. They might just go and sit there and listen to an adult conversation, but they're very interested in what's happening around the world at this time and date, or they're very interested about the past and they want to know a little bit more and what is it that they can do to go beyond that. So estamos hablando sobre el interés en temas de adultos. El alumno muestra interés en los problemas de los adultos como el medio ambiente, la política, la religión o los temas étnicos. También tienen amigos de más edad, son un poquito mayores que ellos. Les gusta pasar el tiempo escuchando platicar a los adultos y muestran interés en eventos actuales. Entonces, estos son los alumnos que tienen sus amigos que son un poco mayores. También son los alumnos que en vez de estar jugando a lo mejor juegos, en videojuegos, o estar viendo a lo mejor un programa en la televisión. Ellos son los alumnos que andan buscando las noticias porque quieren saber qué es lo que está sucediendo en el mundo y cómo es que ellos pueden ayudar cuando tengan la edad o cuando ellos vayan a escoger su carrera. Son los alumnos que quisieran encontrar la solución para el problema que está sucediendo en este momento, hoy en día. Y también están muy interesados en los eventos actuales, no solamente lo que sucedió en el pasado y cómo pueden mejorar, pero sino qué es lo que está sucediendo el día de hoy y qué es lo que pueden hacer ellos para poder encontrar una solución. Entonces, esos son los alumnos que les gusta estar escuchando las conversaciones de los adultos, están muy interesados porque al escuchar ellos esos, entonces ellos ya pueden generar unas ideas diferentes. So here we're talking, of course, about a different characteristic, and it's the one of interest in adult issues. We go with the next one. So la siguiente es persistencia. We go with persistence. This is the student who's easily bored with routine jobs, drawn to complex and complicated tasks of his own choosing that appear to be over his or her head. Responsible, can be counted on to do what he or she promised and usually will do it well. Focus on perfectionism. Self-critical, not easily satisfied with his or own speed of accomplishment. Tenacious, continuing with tasks when others have quit. And ambitious with can-do attitude. So these are the students that are like, I can do it. There's no problem. I'm going to figure it out. So instead of maybe asking their teacher or asking their parents at home, they're going to be maybe Googling or just looking for things around the house, thinking about it and say, I can do this. I can work it out. I don't need to ask anybody. I don't need to look for anybody. I'll be able to figure it out. But then there are those students also that they're very focused and they're focused on something being very perfect. They don't just submit an assignment just like that. When they're submitting an assignment, by the time they submit it, they already know that that assignment is very well done because they're perfectionists from the moment they begin their assignment or their research or their essay till they finish that assignment. And when you give them a job or you give them an assignment and it's a typical routine, sometimes let's say it's just multiplication tables and it's your typical handout of multiplication tables, they get very bored because you're not challenging them. They like the challenge and they want to be challenged. Entonces estamos hablando sobre la persistencia. Es el alumno que se aburre fácilmente con trabajos de rutina. Son alumnos que les atrae las tareas complejas y complicadas que él mismo escoge y que con una frecuencia parecen estar más allá de sus capacidades. Es responsable, se puede tener la certeza con que hará lo que prometió y hará el bien. Se enfoca en el ser perfecto. Se critica a sí mismo y no queda satisfecho fácilmente con rapidez y con logros. Es tenaz, sigue con una tarea cuando los demás ya lo dejaron y es ambicioso y tiene una actitud de lo puedo hacer. Entonces, este es el alumno que no hay ninguna dificultad. Yo voy a encontrar la solución y no tengo que preguntarle a nadie porque yo lo voy a hacer. Entonces, ese es ese alumno que tiene esa certeza. Ese es el alumno que quiere perfección. Cuando va a hacer una tarea, va a hacer un ensayo, va a hacer un bosquejo, lo va a empezar y lo va a terminar. Pero para cuando lo termine y cuando lo empieza con una perfección que continúa con esa perfección que para cuando lo entrega ya está a otro nivel este alumno y se critica. No hay ningún problema y dice, ¿sabe qué? No me gustó, lo voy a volver a hacer. Y se está criticando continuamente. So here we're talking, of course, about the persistence, about the student, right? Wanting to continue, wanting to perfect, wanting to do more and never satisfied with the answers that they have come with because they're, you know what? No, that's not good enough. Let me try to figure something else out. Curiosity. So continuamos con curiosidad. They like to ask questions constantly about anything and everything, possessing a good deal of intellectual playfulness, making up imaginary playmates or colorful stories. Starting questions with, I wonder what would happen if, manipulating, changing, and elaborating on ideas. and concerning herself or himself with adapting, improving and modifying his or her environment on objects that is surrounded by them. So this is the student that in class is the one that's always raising their hand, and it's kind of like, teacher, 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 I know it. And there's times where teachers are like, I know you know it, but I need to make sure everybody else knows it. So it's that student that is eager beaver, continues. They're very intellectual. So where they are in class or they're socializing, whether it be in a school environment or outside school environment, there are those students that are making up different things, even if they're alone. Maybe they don't have anybody to play with. And they're always wondering, and they'll go up to you and say, Mom, or Dad, I wonder if, or Grandma or Grandpa, Antoinette, I wonder if, and they're always figuring something out with themselves, and they're changing. And they come up with something and they're like, no, I don't like it. No, I don't like this. And and then once they do it, they start elaborating and they want to give more specific ideas. So they go beyond just the regular assignment. Entonces vamos con curiosidad. El alumno se pregunta constantemente sobre todo, tiene una buena cantidad de alegría intelectual, inventa amigos imaginarios o historias coloridas. Empiezan las preguntas en ¿qué pasaría si? Manipula, cambia y elabora sus ideas y se preocupa por adaptar, mejorar y modificar su ambiente y los objetos a su alrededor. Entonces, este es el alumno que continuamente está haciendo preguntas. Es el alumno que siempre está levantando la mano en la clase y está diciendo, maestro o maestra, yo sé, profe, yo sé la respuesta. Y el profesor le va a decir, ¿saben qué? Ahorita no, porque tengo que ver si los otros alumnos entendieron este trabajo o esta lección que acabo de explicar. Es ese alumno que intelectualmente está inventando cosas, inventando amigos imaginarios. ¿Por qué? Porque es el más allá. Él quiere saber un poquito más y siempre van a tener la pregunta, ¿qué pasaría si yo haría esto? ¿O qué pasaría si esto sucediera en el mundo? Entonces, siempre están continuamente con diferentes preguntas en el qué pasaría para ver qué es lo que ellos pueden hacer y qué se imaginan ellos en cómo pueden ayudar. So now we continue on to the next section. So everything I reviewed right now were the characteristics that you might be seeing in your child, and you're saying, you know what, my child is gifted. They're not that regular student. They have all these other characteristics from a regular student in the classroom that they need that challenge. They want to do things their way, a certain way. Estamos hablando de que ya repasamos sobre las características que puede tener un alumno dotado y talentoso, y es ese alumno que quiere un poquito más, es ese alumno que busca el ser perfecto, es ese alumno que le gusta siempre estar preguntando. So, estas características en las cuales ya repasamos es algo que usted puede ver en su hijo e hija, ya sea en el salón de clase o en el ambiente en su casa. Entonces son características que vemos que no son muy usuales, pero que las estamos viendo y es lo que los separa a ellos. So this separates them from the other students, and that's why they're gifted. So, just for you to have an idea on how can I tell if my child is gifted, these are just some ideas and some characteristics that you might be seeing in your children, and that's why either you want to refer them or your school counselor or the teacher already referred them so they can be tested for GT. Now, here we have an identification process in the district of UISD. First, we have new students that come to the district that have not been in the district, and we have a 30-day identification process. But that's at the beginning of the school year. Tenemos un proceso de identificación y eso es para los estudiantes que son nuevos para el Distrito Escolar de United. Y es sobre las referencias que son aprobados y tienen 30 días cuando ingresan al año escolar. Entonces, esto ya sucedió, pero es alguna información que es muy importante que a lo mejor ustedes pueden compartir con alguien. You all can share this for the upcoming school year if you know somebody is coming new to the district. So what is our identification process for our current UISD students? So, ¿cuál es el proceso de identificación para nuestros alumnos que actualmente están en el Distrito Escolar de United? Well, first we have our regular timeline, which is our referral deadline, and that's going to be October 18, 2024. And this is to refer a student by advising the campus counselor. Counselors monitor a list of referrals for the GT and Advanced Academic Office on Project Education platform. So what happens here is either the parent can refer the student or the teacher can refer the student. And they're going to give you, if you, the parent, wants to refer the student because you've noticed that the GT hasn't, the teacher has not referred the student, then you can go ahead and call the counselor, or you'll see towards the end of this presentation, how is it that you can refer your child. Tenemos una fecha límite para el periodo regular para poder referir a los alumnos que sean parte de este programa o para que empiecen el proceso para ver si van a ser identificados. Y se recomienda a un estudiante informándole al orientador escolar, que es al consejero o a la consejera. Los orientadores, los consejeros recopilan una lista de referencias para la oficina de estudiantes sobresalientes, que es nuestra oficina. Entonces, no necesariamente tiene que ser el consejero o la consejera, el maestro o la maestra de la escuela, el que recomiende al alumno o vaya a referir al alumno para que vaya a estar en el proceso de ser identificado. Puede ser el padre de familia y ustedes mismos pueden referir a sus hijos para que sean identificados GT, pero primeramente tienen que ir por el proceso para ver si van a calificar o no van a calificar. And always remember that this is an identification process. Doesn't necessarily mean that your child is going to be identified GT. It's a process. We have to look at certain requirements in order for them to be able to participate in the program. Luego, so here we're going to continue. This is the process, and this is what I was talking about. So within the process, if you want to refer your child, you go into uisd.net, and this presentation will be placed in our website where you will have it easily accessed, and it'll give you, of course, the steps there. You're going to go into uisd.net. So van a entrar a la página de web, uisd.net. You're going to go to departments. Van a ir a la sección que dice departments. Then you're going to click on Advanced Academics and Gifted and Talented. Van a escoger la sección que diga Advanced Academics, Gifted and Talented. Luego se van a ir hacia la derecha. You're going to go towards the right of the screen, and you're going to see an area that says Gifted and Talented. And I have it here. If you notice, I put a little arrow. This is what you're going to see. Yes.
The screen is not shared.
My screen is not shared?
No.
No, I'm just following my PowerPoint.
Okay. Well, are you showing them? Because the PowerPoint's not showing.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Mr. Rosales, everybody else is seeing the PowerPoint. Oh, you okay, parents? Thank you for letting me know that you can see it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe it's just a technical problem that we're having here with UISD. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And here, what you're going to do is when you click on Gifted and Talented, aquí van a ver donde dice Gifted and Talented, y van a oprimir aquí. So you're going to click here, and that's where it's going to take you to this page. So cuando opriman aquí a Gifted and Talented, les va a llevar a esta página, y aquí pueden escoger inglés o español. Here you're going to either choose if you prefer English or Spanish, and here's where you begin and you complete the process in Project Education. So aquí es donde ustedes van a oprimir si quieren la información en inglés o en español. Y es donde van a empezar y van a terminar o completar el proceso. And then at the very end, you're going to see submit. So it's going to ask you a series of questions. So as you notice here, required forms, formularios requeridos. So in there, this is just a sample of what you're going to see, a parent jot down. So va a haber aquí anotaciones de los padres. And it's going to ask you some questions on what are you seeing at home, or what have you heard, or any different characteristics. And here you're going to select. And once you go through the series of the required forms, it's going to ask you to submit. Aquí, como ustedes pueden ver, está una sección, una parte de donde los padres de familia tienen que llenar este formulario, y cuando ya llenen todo el formulario, hacia el final van a poder oprimir que van a entregar el formulario y van a ver la palabra submit. And then there is a teacher jot down. So if the teacher refers, or if the teacher would like to also have their input, there's a teacher jot down. So también hay anotaciones del maestro y el maestro entra a esta página de web también y puede poner la información necesaria. Once we do that, and once all this has been submitted, then the counselors are going to have a list that we're going to share with them. So we compile all the information and then we go on to the next step. So ya cuando tengamos toda esta información y se cierre la fecha, que es el 18 de octubre, so once we've gathered all the information and we have our deadline, which is October 18th, we gather all our information from Project Education, and then we send the list to the campuses. So ya cuando tengamos toda la información, se le entrega a la escuela. El departamento de nosotros le manda a la escuela del alumno cuáles son los alumnos de esa escuela que están interesados en seguir en el proceso para poder ser identificados, GT. So this is we gather the information and we send it to the campuses so we can let them know which are the students that are going to be tested and want to be identified as GT. So here we go to testing. Counselors receive training and administer tests in student groups online on the campus. And please advise counselors if testing accommodations are documented in students' IEP. The testing windows are for COGAT. So we have several testing windows. The one for kinder is October the 28th through November the 15th. Tenemos exámenes. So ya cuando esté el procedimiento hecho y se le mande la lista a los consejeros de las escuelas donde su hijo e hija participa, los orientadores van a administrar a los grupos de estudiantes en línea de las escuelas el examen. Y favor de avisar a los orientadores si las modificaciones de los exámenes están documentados en el plan de educación individualizado. So here, if your child, for whatever reason, participates in a special program and has some type of accommodation and they have an IEP, please make sure to remind the counselor that there are some accommodations and modifications that need to be used. Are all of them going to be used? Not necessarily. It's only the ones that the test allows for the student to use, depending on the company. Lo que estamos diciendo es que si su hijo o hija participa en algún programa especial y va a tomar el examen, favor de recordarle al consejero de la escuela o a la consejera que tiene algunas modificaciones para que el alumno tome este examen. No necesariamente significa que su hijo o hija va a tomar el examen con todas las modificaciones, se les va a dar únicamente las modificaciones que tiene el examen en sí mismo y acepta el examen. Then we go on to the assessment information, which sometimes parents have a lot of questions. And the assessment information is on cognitive abilities test. So this is not a test that you study for. This is not something that, kind of like an end of course exam, a STAR exam, a typical weekly exam that you see, a checkpoint. This is a different type of exam. And this exam is called COGAT, Adobe COGAT 7. And it measures the students' learned reasoning abilities in the 3 areas most closely related to success in school. And it has 3 components: a verbal component, a quantitative component, and a nonverbal component. So this is what they're assessed on, and it's in COGAT. So it's not a typical test that you can study for. So, información adicional sobre la evaluación y el examen. Es un examen de habilidades cognitivo y el examen es COGAT. Mide las habilidades de razonamiento aprendidas del estudiante en las 3 áreas más relacionadas con el éxito escolar. Hay 3 componentes: verbal, cuantitativo y no verbal. Entonces, no hay con que el alumno va a poder estudiar para este examen. El alumno, es un examen similar a lo que toma en la escuela, un examen semanal, un examen semestral, un examen del estado. No tiene nada que ver con eso. Es únicamente estos componentes que ustedes ven aquí. So this is some assessment information. And if we continue and you want to know, well, what is it that they ask? So right here is an example of students that are in K through 2nd. Test 1, because it has different tests, it has picture analogies. And this one says students examine the 2 pictures to determine how they are related. Then they apply this relationship to several pairs of pictures and choose a pair related in the same way. So as you can see, this is a little bit different of what they're used to. So aquí estamos viendo que el examen para el alumno tiene que ver dos figuras y en esas dos figuras tiene que ver cómo están relacionadas. Luego ellos van a aplicar esta relación en varios pares de las fotografías o las figuras que se les está dando y van a tener que escoger el par que para ellos esté más relacionado de la misma manera. Entonces, como ustedes pueden ver, las preguntas que están en este examen es muy diferente a las preguntas a las cuales ellos están impuestos. So, don't feel discouraged if your child doesn't do well in this exam or your child didn't qualify for GT. You can always refer them the following year. Maybe maturity wasn't there and they weren't ready for this type of exam. It's okay for you to refer them the following year. Or if they get home and they say, this exam was difficult, it was a little bit confusing, I didn't understand it. This is the reason, because this is the type of exam that they're taking. Si su hijo o hija llega a la casa y está un poco confuso y dice que el examen estuvo un poco difícil, un poco diferente, no se mortifique, es que el examen sí es diferente. El examen está con diferentes componentes, es algo que no es usual para el alumno. Entonces, si el alumno por alguna razón no le fue bien en ese examen y no es identificado GT, no hay ningún problema. A lo mejor no estuvo listo, preparado mentalmente o no tiene la madurez todavía, pero el próximo año lo pueden volver a referir y a lo mejor el próximo año ya pueden lograr esa meta que el alumno tenga. So as you can see here, there's different tests. They have sentence completion, picture classification, number analogies, number puzzles, number series, figure matrices, paper folding, and figure classification. And you can see here on how it's divided, verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal. So, como pueden ver, estaba diciendo, hay varios exámenes que toman los alumnos. Está el de las fotografías, las figuras, está sobre las oraciones, está sobre la parte de cómo clasificar una fotografía, analogías, numerales, están aquí también sobre los números, un crucigrama, está la serie de números, está una matriz de figuras, está como doblar un papel y está la clasificación de figuras. Y entonces aquí es donde están los tres componentes en los cuales hablamos anteriormente, que es verbal, cuantitativo y no verbal. So this is just so you can have an idea of the type of questioning that the student is going to have to encounter the day of the test. And then here you have another one. And this one is for students that are in grades 3 and up. So esta sección es muy parecida a la anterior, pero este es el examen para los alumnos que están en tercero y arriba de tercero. Entonces es algo parecido, pero a otro nivel. Y también con los tres componentes. Once again, the three components are here, the verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal. And this is only the COGAT exam. So este es únicamente el examen COGAT. Luego hay otro examen que toman los alumnos. So there's another assessment the students take, and that's the NNAT. It's assessment information. NNAT 3 evaluates students' nonverbal reasoning and general problem-solving ability, regardless of the individual student's primary language, education, culture, or socioeconomic background. So this is a different exam, and this is part 2. So they take the COGAT, exam 1, and then they take another exam, and it's NNAT. So aquí tenemos otro examen, y este examen evalúa el razonamiento no verbal y la capacidad general de la resolución de problemas de los estudiantes independientemente del idioma principal, la educación, la cultura o el origen socioeconómico del estudiante. So, como usted puede ver, aparte del otro examen que acabo de hablar sobre COGAT, también tienen que tomar un segundo examen y es el NNAT, que tiene que ver mucho con el razonamiento. And here's a sample. So these are some samples that this would be kind of like the question, and then they would have to choose what would this become and how can we fill in this. So aquí está una figura. Este es un ejemplo de una de las preguntas en el examen NNAT. Les dan las diferentes opciones y el alumno va a tener que escoger la respuesta y va a tener que llenar este cuadrito viendo estas figuras. So we go on to grades. Las calificaciones. So besides, of course, putting in the referral for the student being referred, the student taking 2 assessments, which is the COGAT and the NNAT, we also look at grades. So están las calificaciones. It's a composite average of the core subjects, which are ELAR, math, science, and social studies. Aquí tenemos que ver también las calificaciones y es un promedio del compuesto de las materias esenciales de lenguaje y lectura, matemáticas, ciencias e historia. And then, of course, what we talked about a little bit earlier today, which was the parent or teacher jot down, which is a required document that you submit when you go into project education and you refer your child. So notes on observation of behaviors associated with gifted and talented students in a home or a classroom setting. So aquí están los apuntes sobre la observación de conductas asociadas con los estudiantes sobresalientes en casa o en el entorno escolar. So here, this information will be submitted as well. And of course, they add up all the points. Entonces aquí son unos apuntes, y donde con las respuestas que ustedes pongan también se va a poner se suma todo lo que ustedes pusieron y también tienen ahí una puntuación. So there'll be points there as well. And here's what we're talking about. This is a GT identification matrix. Es un modelo de identificación de los alumnos sobresalientes. So esta es la forma, cuando viene el comité, tenemos un comité que empieza a evaluar cuál fue el promedio del alumno de COGAT. Y como ustedes pueden ver aquí en la segunda sección, número 2, is the COGAT. So right here, did the student score between a 1 or a 30 through a 30, a 31 through a 49, a 50 through a 74, 75 through an 84, 85 through 89. And this is depending on where they score is how many points they get. Same thing for NNAT. Then we go to grades and then we go to the parent jot down or teacher jot down. So como ustedes pueden ver, cuando ya se termina los exámenes de los alumnos, se entregan las calificaciones, se entregan las anotaciones de los padres o del maestro, entonces tenemos un comité que tiene que evaluar toda la información y el comité tiene que ver en cómo fue que salió el alumno, cuál es el promedio que el alumno obtuvo en su examen de COGAT que hablamos. Hablamos también sobre el examen de NNAT, como ustedes pueden ver aquí. Luego las calificaciones y luego las anotaciones. So sometimes we say, you know, our child has a very high GPA. So why did my child not make it? Well, if you look at this and you look at the third section, maybe your child did get all the points through the GPA, but did your child get all the points that they needed through the other sections? And that is what could affect it, your child. So lo que estoy diciendo es que ustedes pueden decir, mi alumno, mi hijo e hija es muy inteligente y tiene un promedio muy alto y efectivamente lo puede tener y pueden tener todas las puntuaciones en el promedio, pero a lo mejor le va a afectar cómo salió en el examen y ahí es donde le puede afectar la puntuación que tenga el alumno. So if you look at the bottom section where it says minimum score for meeting the criteria, if the student is in kinder, the student needs to get a 14 or higher. And if the student is in 1st through 11th grade, then the student needs to get a 17 or higher. What does that mean? That when we add 1, 2, 3, and 4, they need to either have, if they're in kinder, a 14 or higher, or if they're in 1st through 11th grade, they need to sum up a 17 or higher. So lo que estoy hablando aquí es que aquí se le está dando la calificación que el alumno va a necesitar. Si está en kinder, entonces, el alumno necesita un 14 o mejor de la puntuación que se suma aquí. O si está en primero, de primero a onceavo, necesita un 17 de puntuación o más arriba. So as you can see here, here's where they get the score. And that is how the score is formulated. So sometimes we're like, well, I don't understand. There's a process. So as you know, you have to look at the characteristics. Those are the characteristics that you're probably going to fill out when you're doing the parent jot down. Then the students take 2 exams, the COGAT, the NNAT, then their grades, and then it goes to the committee. Once it goes to the committee, they go into the matrix, they fill out the matrix, and that is how we identify the student. So that is how we know whether the student made the program, it will be able to participate in the GT program the upcoming school year, or they're not going to be able to participate. Lo que estaba diciendo es que cuando el alumno se quiere identificar, hay un proceso, como ustedes vieron, están las anotaciones del padre, del maestro, están los 2 exámenes, el de COGAT, el de NNAT, y luego el promedio de todas sus clases, y luego ya es cuando el comité se junta y ya ponen las puntuaciones, y si llegan a tener las puntuaciones que se necesitan, entonces son identificados GT, sobresalientes, y si no, entonces no pueden participar en el programa al siguiente año escolar. Y fechas importantes, important dates that we need to remember. When are these tests taken? The COGAT, if the students are in kinder, they take it from October the 28th through November the 15th. And the NNAT, they take it from January the 13th to January the 31st. Then if they're in first through fifth grade, the COGAT is taken from November the 4th through December the 13th. And the NNAT, they take it from February the 3rd through March the 7th. If they're in sixth grade to eighth grade, and actually this could be till 11th grade. Usually we don't have students who are referred in high school, but if you have a child in high school and you want to refer them, that's okay. So they take the COGAT between October 28th through December 13th, and the NNAT, they take it from January the 9th through March the 7th. So lo que estaba hablando aquí es cuáles son las fechas en las cuales los alumnos toman el examen. El examen, si están en kinder, lo toman del 28 de octubre al 15 de noviembre, el de COGAT, y el NNAT lo toman del 13 de enero al 31 de enero. Si están en primero a quinto, el COGAT lo toman el 4 de noviembre al 13 de diciembre, y el NNAT tienen del 3 de febrero al 7 de marzo para tomarlo. Y luego, aquí puse de sexto a octavo, pero actualmente puede ser hasta onceavo, nada más que usualmente los alumnos de preparatoria no piden tomar el examen o ser parte del proceso. Es mínimo el alumno que lo pide, pero lo puede pedir y no hay ningún problema. Y esas fechas es del 28 de octubre al 13 de diciembre o del 9 de enero al 7 de marzo. So these are the important dates to remember. This is a window. So just remember, this is a window. It doesn't necessarily going to be October the 28th or October the 29th. It depends how it works for the campus. So recuerden que esta es como una ventanilla en la cual pueden tomar el examen. No necesariamente tiene que ser el 28 de octubre. Puede ser el 29, puede ser en noviembre. Todo depende de cómo la escuela del alumno tiene su calendario y dónde ellos pueden acomodar estos exámenes. Luego, como les quiero dar las gracias por haber asistido a esta junta. I want to thank everybody on behalf of the academics, GT and dual enrollment department, on behalf of Mr. Rosales and myself for participating and being interested in being part of the GT program and wanting your child and seeing those characteristics of your child on the possibility of them being GT identified. So les queremos dar las gracias por participar en esta junta y porque ustedes están viendo algo diferente en sus hijos e hijas y creen que su hijo e hija puede participar en nuestro programa de GT y para que puedan ser identificados. En este momento, voy a escriban las preguntas. You all can please write. I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. So right now, if you have a question, well, before I continue with questions, I want to present to you, I saw that Mr. Rosales did log into our meeting, who's the director of our department. Mr. Rosales, is there anything you would like to say?
Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're here to assist you and we're your department for servicing GT students. So we need to make sure that we answer all your questions they may have. So I see already one question. What is the difference between GT and high achiever, and do both need to be referred? I would recommend you do, so that way we can assess their abilities, and then that way we can service the student to the best of their ability. Thank you again for joining us. This is a recording, so if you would like to share this recording with some other family member, we'll be posting it soon and sharing it with the campus so that they can have this information. Yes, you do get a copy of the results once it's finalized. If you request it through email, through your campus will request it from us. We'll provide it to the campus, and then your campus counselor will sit with you and review it for you. We'll be posting this presentation on the Advanced Academics website as soon as we convert it to YouTube format, so that way everybody can access it and it can play for them. And that way you can get all the information. But again, we'll share the link with the campuses. We'll post the link also on the Advanced Academics website, and we'll try to share it as well with our social media, so that way you can have access to it. And we'll have a printout of the slides as well in PDF format as well. And we'll share all this with the campus. So I'm trying to follow the questions, Ms. Lanese.
Yes,
I believe
it says they're asking when and how soon after testing are the results available?
usually it's in April, and then there's a time period where, in case you want to appeal the results, there's also a time period for that. So after all these after the timeline is met, then we're able to release some of the information that you might want to look at.
Then it says, today my daughter's teacher told me she passed a GT test and that I would get a letter on Tuesday. What test would that be?
Well, right now I believe we're testing kinder students. Is the child a kinder student?
She's not specific. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, she wrote yes.
Okay, so in this situation, I believe they gave them a screener test, right? And
Correct.
then after that, they're going to give them the rest of the assessment for COGAT. At that time, then we'll be able to assess whether the child will qualify for GT services.
No, thank you. We want to thank all the parents for participating today. If you have any questions, you all can call us at 956-473-2160 or 956-473-5244. Or you can also send us an email.
So if you have submitted a referral 2 weeks ago, and if you're doing the regular timeline, they'll be reaching out to the counselor with a list of the students that are going to be scheduled for testing. And this usually takes pretty much quite a bit of time, because there's several assessments. And then the committee has to review their grades and the jot down from the teacher and the parent. So this takes quite a bit of time. We also are going to share the timeline so that you can see how long it takes for the information to be processed. So there's remember Ms. Lanese mentioned that there's several choices. If you're new to the district, the child could be tested within 30 days. But then after the 30 days are up, the date has already passed, then we use the regular timeline. And as soon as we collect all the referrals, we'll be sending that list to the counselor so that they can set them up for testing.
So here, I'm going to answer one question in Spanish. ¿Dónde podremos mirar este video de la Junta? Este video se mandará primero a nuestro Departamento de Relaciones Públicas. Ellos convierten este video y lo pondremos en nuestra página de web de uisd.net. En la sección de Advanced Academics estará esta junta y también estará la presentación disponible para que ustedes la puedan ver.
If the child passes the assessment and qualifies for GT services, it doesn't mean that the child is going to get more work. It just means that the curriculum will be differentiated. It'll give them sort of like a challenge in reference to the way the material is presented. So there has to be differentiation. It has to be a teacher that's GT trained, so that way they can differentiate the curriculum for them. And they'll be able to challenge the child to the best of their ability in reference to whatever talent the child might exhibit. It is not more work, but in terms of how we measure how the child has grown based on the differentiation of curriculum, we normally have them do a project So this project is one of the requirements from the state. So that way we can measure how the child has grown based on that differentiation that he received in the classroom.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
My child was approved for GT last year, and this year I had spoke to her teacher, and I asked her if she was gonna be like a teacher for teaching the GT students, and she said that they were all qualified to teach GT, but the main one was a different teacher. My question is, what project is the one that my child is going to have to do? Is it like a science project or?
Well, it depends on the grade level your child is in. So that
Okay,
pretty much
she's in second
depends
grade.
on. I'm sorry?
She's in second grade.
Yeah, so in second grade they have a theme. So based on that theme, they pretty much encourage the child to pick their passion. In other words, it has to be a project that the child wants to do, not that it's going to be assigned to the child. So that way
Okay.
they can show their talent in reference to uh, how the talent has been enriched by the curriculum that is offered to them.
Okay. And by chance, sir, do you know when that project will be happening, or is it like during the like maybe after the holidays?
Well, that project normally gets started as soon as school starts. So they start giving them some suggestions in reference to what they're thinking of contributing in terms of a project. So the fall term is devoted to quite a bit of research on what the child wants to present to the public, the community, the school. And then after they present their findings in the fall, and then according to the curriculum in the spring, they present their final projects. So after they present their final projects, which is sometimes in April, then they
Okay.
pick they select, I believe, the top three, and they're the ones that are selected to represent the campus at the district showcase. So at the district
Okay.
level, we have the projects, and the students are recognized for making it that far.
Okay. Thank you. And the last question I have, since she was enrolled in GT last year, they accepted her. Do when would be the deadline to register again for third grade?
Well, once she is identified as a GT student, she's pretty much in the program until the parents tell us otherwise. There are
Okay.
several options. So she's pretty much, once she's identified, she's pretty much in the program.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you. That was all my questions. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. There's a question in Spanish, Ms.
In
Vanessa.
Spanish, ¿qué pasa si mi hijo está en pre-kinder y su maestra ya lo identificó como GT? ¿Hay algo que pueda hacer este año o solo debemos esperar hasta kinder? Tienen que esperar hasta kinder porque cuando toman el examen COGAT, los niños tienen que tener 5 años. Entonces, la identificación no sucede hasta que los niños están en kinder y se hace el proceso. Entonces, ahorita en pre-kinder no. A lo mejor la maestra está viendo algunas características y la está preparando para el próximo año, para que el alumno esté listo para el próximo año y cuando vaya a tomar sus exámenes.
So I noticed that sometimes the counselor leads the child in reference to providing GT services for the project component. So it has to be a teacher or a counselor that has the training in order to provide those services. So sometimes the campus doesn't have that many GT students, so they have a pull-out program to where they meet with the counselor, the librarian, or the actual teacher to work on the project. And we recommend that at least 3 hours per week is what we're recommending. Of course, sometimes it's not possible in order to assist the child with the project that they're working on. So that's one. There's another one, I believe here it says that the child can nominate itself. They could be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be the child themselves. But I strongly recommend that if you strongly feel that you can benefit from these services, that you nominate the child yourself. Okay, so if it's not close to 3 hours, we'll try to advocate for your child and advise the campus to please try to give them more support in reference to the pull-out program at some of the campuses. So thank you for letting us know. The best way to advocate for your child for GT support is to meet with your campus administration, your counselor, your principal, your assistant principals that are overseeing the program. Sometimes it's the counselor, sometimes it's the librarian that oversees the program. So just mention your concerns and they'll be happy to assist you in whatever way they can. So thank you for your support. That's great that you're advocating for the program. Yes, the parent will be advised if the child needs to be tested. You do have to sign some documents before the child tests.
We want to thank everybody for participating today in our meeting. At this time with Zoom, we know that we only have 1 hour, so it might be shutting off. If you have any questions, you can please send us an email at gt@uisd.net. And either Mr. Rosales or myself can go ahead and respond to your questions. So si tienen alguna pregunta, esta junta se ha terminado, nos pueden mandar un correo electrónico, nos pueden enviar un correo electrónico a gt@uisd.net. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Thank you very much to everyone. We really appreciate it. And have a great, great afternoon and a great upcoming weekend.
Thank you all. You have a great evening. Thank you for all you do for your child.